All right, so we're doing math test 6A corrections here. And let me flip over to my camera. All right, so here was problem number 1. The shaded portion represents a fraction. What is the fraction represented? 3/4. Okay. Which model is not equivalent? Well, if I look here, doesn't this look the same, just turned around?
Yes.
Like rotated?
C is
And this does too?
C is wrong one.
D looks the same too, it's just they did triangles, but are those triangles equal to each other?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is a fraction. Those triangles are equal to each other. But this one is only, look at this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is 3 out of 8 shaded. Okay? So 3/8 does not equal 3/4. Because we can look at this and we see the numerators are the same. Okay, but this is bigger pieces, right? So this is going to be more. So if you had written down your fractions, it might have made it a little easier to compare, but most of you did just fine. Yes, Torian. Yes, dear, that's what I just said. You are exactly correct. You should have math test 6A corrections. You should have your name.
This is not.
Yep, it says not. Did you miss that word? They printed it big. Oh, got to read carefully. Okay, so number 1, C. I'm not going to make you draw the picture. Okay, let's go on to number 2. CORR, period. Good enough for me. I'm going to staple it to your test anyway. Okay, now here was an interesting one. Joshua, Sam, and Lamont are teammates on the baseball team. They each practice on their own every day. Joshua practices for 4/5 of an hour. What I would do here, 4/5, I would just write it like this. Sam practices for 8/12 an hour. Lamont practices for half an hour, 1/2. Which comparison correctly compares a fractional amount of time Joshua and Sam each spend time practicing? So I look up here and I see Sam is 8/12, Joshua is 4/5, which means this answer is right out because what does it have in there? 1/2, which is Lamont. Whoops. You guys can. Okay. So then I have to decide which is bigger. Well, and I look here, this is 4/5. This answer is right out as well because that says 5/4. Okay, so it's got to be one of these. All right. And Laitland says it's B, but let's check the math. You did the math? So what did you do for a common denominator?
The common denominator
Is 60. 12 times 5 is 60. 8 times 5 is 40. Okay. 5 times 12 is 60. We have to do the same thing to the top. 12 times 4 is 48. So 4/5 is greater than 8/12. The correct answer is B. But just by using common sense, guys, I got 2 of the answers out of the way. Okay. Whoops, not B. How about number 2? 2B, and that is 4/5. I have no idea.
It's not only that. It could be like something.
Yeah.
There's different signs.
Yeah, but they didn't announce a drill. They would have announcements if we needed to do something. Okay, number 3. Okay, that's how you spell corrections, just in case you're wondering. This is what your paper should look like. Okay. Now this one was stinking confusing.
Yes, it was.
And if Miss Raymond had written this
That's
test,
the one I got wrong.
if Miss Raymond had written this test, this would not be on here. Okay? But what you had to do is you kind of had to break each sentence apart into 2 parts. Which statement about the fractions 3/9 and 5/15 is true? These fractions are both less than 1. Are they less than 1?
No.
Do you have 1 whole in these fractions? No, because 1 whole would be 9/9, right? And 1 whole would be 15/15. So they are less than 1. They're both less than 1. Okay, so don't cross that one out yet. These fractions are both greater than 1. Is that one true? No. These fractions are equivalent. We don't know. Both these things say these fractions are equivalent, don't they? So now let's look at the second half. We don't know, but we definitely got rid of one answer because these fractions are not more than 1. They were greater than 1, then the numerator would have to be greater than the denominator. Because their numerators are greater than their denominator, is the numerator greater than the denominator?
No.
Okay, just by reading, if there's a comma like this, split it into 2 parts. Is this part true? Yes. Is this part true? No. Okay. Hold on. We have to go through the process so people can see I'm thinking. Now, both these fractions are equivalent because now we need to look at the rest of the sentence. Because their numerators are 3 times their denominator. Is their numerator 3 times as big as 9? No. So they're saying 9 times 3 is the numerator. Is 9 times 3 the numerator? No. That only leaves us with 1. And look, it says because their denominators are 3 times their numerator. So if I take 3 times 3, does it equal 9? If I take 5 times 3, does it equal 15? So did we even really need to worry about the equivalent part? Because we found out it was true, and these absolutely cannot be true because of the other statements in them. So number 3 was, or is, D. It was tricky. That's why I said break it apart into 2 parts. These fractions are both less than 1, greater than 1. You could disprove it right there. Because in order for it to be true, both parts have to be true. Okay? Now, if I really wanted to know, I could go and find the common denominator and all that. But I can figure it out just by disproving half of the statement. Now, this one, they tried to get you on this one too, ladies and gentlemen. Jonathan has 13/10 meter of kite string. What is the denominator?
10.
Tenths. So how many pieces should each one be cut into? Here's 1. How many pieces should each one whole? 10. Okay, so obviously this one is right out because look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Definitely not it. I could tell just by looking. And then it goes past 2. Does he have more than 2?
It's not.
No, 2 would be 20 over 10. And it's not that big. It's not A because how many pieces is it cut into? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 pieces. Now look, there are 13 pieces shaded, aren't they?
Yeah.
But this is actually 11, 12. This is 13 elevenths. 13 elevenths, not 13 tenths. Okay. And then I look here and I see 10 on my number line.
No.
No, we don't have 10 holes, so there's only one option left, which would be C. 4 would be C. Not going to make you draw the number line. Lenhart, are you writing these down? Yes? Okay. Everybody should be writing these down.
We are.
Okay. Thank you. Number 5. Now this one was the wording. The wording. Gabe, it is a tool, not a toy. Okay. So pizza was chosen as a favorite food by 9 of 36 students. So that tells me what fraction? 9 out of 36. Okay. When I'm dealing with numbers and it's in words, the first thing I do is I write down the number to help avoid confusion. Because when you start looking down here, then it gets all foggy, doesn't it? Okay. Which method can be used to find a fraction equivalent to the number of students who did not choose pizza as their favorite food? So I would do 36. Which ones this did choose? Did, but we need to know how many did not. What did you guys do?
We subtracted.
Subtracted what?
36 subtracted by 9.
Not subtracted by 9. 36 minus 9.
36 minus 9. So we can figure
Which
out
was?
how much is.
Okay. So if 9 out of 36 did choose it, then how many did not? 27 out of 30. That is a big class. 36 people? Whew. Okay. So which ones can I automatically cross off then because they do not have the proper fraction? A and B, we can automatically cross those off because they have the fraction. This means they have more than one whole class in there. Because they have more, they don't have 27 students. If they did, this would mean they'd have 27 students. Plus
We can't really see.
okay, so sorry. There we go. Is that better? Thank you for letting me know.
Answer's D.
The answer is D because whatever you have to do to the top, you have to do the same thing to the bottom.
You're
So
welcome.
that's because 3 and 4 are not the same thing, okay? So 5 would be D. 27 over 36 divided by 9 over 9 equals 3/4. That's called reducing a fraction. Reduce means to make it smaller. So they're equivalent fractions, but they reduced it to a smaller fraction. Okay? 5, 6, Marcus. All right, next page. Okay. So there was lots of confusing words up here. Okay. Nicole and Jared have vegetable gardens that are the same size. Nicole planted tomatoes in 4/8 of her garden. Jared planted tomatoes in 2/3 of her garden. They each created a model to represent the amount of the garden that is planted with tomatoes. Whose garden had the largest portion planted with tomatoes? All we had to do was look at the pictures, didn't we? What two fractions are we comparing? 4/8. So I look here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. Is this greater than this? No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Too many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Too few.
D.
D would be the correct answer.
That was fine. That was the easiest one.
Okay, that was pretty easy. All you had to do is make sure to count. A lot of these, if you just paid attention, number 6 was D. 3 more, guys, and then we'll go over our reading test. And we will have more party time tomorrow. Whoop, whoop.
Number 8 and done. I guess we did it and
Where do I put it?
Okay.
Where do I put it when I'm done? Because I already did all.
Just sit down and chill for a minute while we go through the rest of it, okay? I have to do all of it. Okay. LaTanya baked 2 identical cakes for the bake sale. She cut one cake into 8 pieces and the other cake into 16 pieces. The models are shaded to represent the fraction of each cake that was sold at the bake sale. Do we really even need all that information, guys, when it comes to fraction? It's good to read it to make sure you don't need it, but when you look at it, it says which statement correctly compares a fraction of each cake that was sold. Okay. What I did in my head, guys, was I pretended. I flipped this. So I shaded in this, and then this was not shaded in my head. Then I can see 1/2 and 1/2, but that this one sold more, right? So therefore, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you have 5/8 that were sold, okay, is greater than 8/16, which would be equivalent to 1/2. We can tell by looking at that. So it would be B. Yes. You could do that too. Because that would be easy to do because we see here, I always like the math. So thank you. We know that 8 times 2 is 16, right? Just in case you wanted to make sure, which is always a good idea. You have to do the same thing to the top. So then we see that 10/16 is greater than 8/16, or 5/8 is greater than 8/16, which is B. Okay, so you should have 5/8 is greater than 8/16. Number 8.
9, I already knew because I did it with this.
Okay. Okay, this one too. This is another one where you read the words. Miss Jones was making a cake that required 2/3 tablespoon of salt. Which method shows a fraction equivalent to 2/3 tablespoon? So we're just looking for equivalent table things. I see 2/3 here. I see 2/3 here. Is this going to be a good one?
No.
Why not?
Because